Somehow, Matt Eberflus is still the head coach. Ryan Poles is the general manager. And we've got 7 more weeks of surely a lot of pain and misery, boring-ass games to watch. You know what that means, folks. Bears football in peak form, oh boy. All right, let's talk about this Week 12 matchup, Vikings and Bears. I will say, for Minnesota, I was totally and completely wrong. When I did the season preview for this team, I was like, J.J. McCarthy's down. The one thing they had to look forward to this season, it's over. What the fuck are they actually going to think they're doing with Sam Darnold? Like, wasted season, except it isn't. Maybe a bit of fool's gold, but certainly not a wasted season. This team's sitting at 8-2. They're 1 game behind the Lions in the NFC North. Certainly seem destined to make the playoffs unless they get absolutely hit by a locomotive the back end of this season. I think at this point it's safe to say Kevin O'Connell has to be a legit Coach of the Year candidate. How could he not? And when you look at the success of this team, for Christ's sakes, it's making people think that Brian Flores is a head coaching candidate and hot commodity. Yeah, I know, right? Like, that's how good Minnesota is doing this year, how well things are going. And, you know, when you talk about all that with Sam Darnold, you've got Justin Jefferson. He's still a monster, obviously. Aaron Jones has been a nice addition in their backfield for their running game. And, you know, when you talk about Kevin O'Connell and the work that he's put in, certainly Sam Darnold is undergoing a career revitalization. Whether it's going to be in Minnesota or somewhere else long term, Sam Darnold's going to have to be a very hot commodity in the offseason. He's on pace for 4,000 yards passing, well over 30 touchdowns. You got to give credit where credit is due. You feel like sometimes you're waiting for the bottom to kind of fall out, and when will the Sam Darnold of Sam Darnold show up and start making really bad plays and turning the ball over? But again, credit where credit is due. The man has showed up, and he has really taken to the Kevin O'Connell coaching, the Kevin O'Connell system, and is really playing some good football this year. Meanwhile, they're talking about Brian Flores and that defense. They're 4th in points allowed, number 1 against the run, a bit leaky against the pass. They're bottom 5 of the league in passing yards allowed per game. This is a team that gets after it. They will pressure you. They will blitz you. They're not afraid of bringing the heat. They're like top 3 in the league and most sacks so far this year. So this is a Vikings team that can certainly cause you some problems. And then you go to the other side. And of course, it's just more of that same old Bears football that you're used to and you love so much yet are so fucking addicted to. As a good reminder, you don't choose to become a Bears fan. You're indoctrinated into it. It's a family member, it's a friend, it's somebody who clearly didn't love you enough and instead wanted to join them in a lifelong of misery that has you in this spot. So 1, you shouldn't talk to them because they clearly don't love you, didn't love you, never will love you. If you're ever asked about life support decisions, the only option is to pull the fucking plug and then just sit there and watch this stupid-ass team. And it's a shame, too, because a few weeks ago, the kind of vibe around this was much different. The Bears were 4-2 going into the bye, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, like, next few games, get a couple of wins here and give yourself a shot. That's all you can do. Yeah, the division's really tough, but the NFC is not exactly a bloodbath or anything like that. And you have a shot. And then you remember that we're talking about the Bears, a team coached by Matt Eberflus. Of course they were going to fuck it up, and they've lost 4 in a row. How the fuck is that even possible? Blocked field goals and Hail Marys, like, unbelievable. And that loss last week to the Packers was peak Bears football. I don't even want to yell at this time, because why? Because it's not shocking. You had to know it was going to happen somehow, some way. It was the Packers. Of course the Bears are going to lose. And what's really gut-wrenching about that, heartbreaking about that is there was that moment, Caleb Williams, can he come through in the clutch? And he did, and they still found a way to lose. Now, some of the credit last week for the Bears, they looked a little better on offense. They certainly did under new offensive coordinator Thomas Brown. He simplified the game plan. It kind of worked. Now, we can't get too carried away because they scored a whopping 19 points, so let's not break up the anointing oils yet. But yeah, I did say he should be given the interim tag as head coach for the last 7 games because Eberflus is a fucking tool. It's time for him to go. It's been time for him to go. He should have won after last season, frankly. And give Thomas Brown 7 games to audition as the head guy and see whether he's a candidate for the future or not. Now, they're not going to do that because it's a dumb dick organization, and this is what dumb dick organizations do. When you have young quarterbacks, and before Caleb it was Justin Fields, and you need to make sure you do everything you can to help in his development with the quarterback that frankly needed the developmental work and needed the support and needed the help, you bring in Matt Eberflus, a defensive guy. Fuck you, Bill Polian. Caleb looked better though last week. He was better protected. They got the ball out of his hands quicker. Some good things, right? Like, wasn't phenomenal, but it was a little better. So take progression as a reason to be happy. The defense this year, I get tired of seeing people talk about how Eberflus's defense is great. They are not great. They are good, but they are not great. They are not great. Stop saying they're great. They're 7th in points allowed, 14th in yards allowed. No, they're not great. They just aren't. And we need to stop pretending like they are. So even on the side of the ball that he's supposed to be great at, Matt Eberflus is only producing a good defense. When you consider the amount that they've invested on that side of the ball, they need to be better than what they are. And you're going to say, well, hey, shit, I'd be focused on the offense. You know what? Obviously. But at the same point in time, again, they have invested so much on this defense. The expectations should be elite. This is not an elite Bears defense. Stop being dumb dicks and pretending that it is. It's fucking not, period. Anyways, the betting odds for this matchup had the Vikings favored by 3.5 and the over-under, I think, like 39.5, which both of those, I guess, feel all right, although it feels like Minnesota should be favored a little bit more than they are. Coming into this one, the Vikings are relatively healthy. Meanwhile, the Bears, Ryan Bates, I'm assuming he's going to be out with a concussion. Amagaji's going to continue to be out. You got Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, though, back at tackles. Tevin Jenkins might play until he gets hurt again. Fucking Glass Jenkins, swear to God. 4 new starters on this offensive line in 2025. That's the goddamn battle cry. In terms of keys to victory for this team, for the Vikings, number 1, avoid turnovers. Don't let Sam Darnold have a vintage Sam Darnold game because you don't want to give the Bears an opportunity to hang around because they could surprise you. And it almost happened to Green Bay last week. You talk about Jordan Love's horrible interception in the red zone. You talk about the turnover on downs. You can't make those types of mistakes because bad teams like the Bears, even though they're bad, will start to play above themselves because you keep giving them gifts and opportunities. This is the NFL after all. Defensively, if you're going to blitz, you got to get home with the blitz, and it'll be a good contrast in styles between Brian Flores and his kind of blitzing attacking style on defense and what we saw from Thomas Brown with Caleb Williams last week in terms of wanting to get the ball out of his hands quicker. Like, you blitz too much against that type of setup and you could get burned, but if you can get home, it's going to be real trouble. And then in terms of the offense, attack Tyreek Stevenson. He sucks. He's been terrible this year. And I'm not even talking about giving up the Hail Mary touchdown at the end of the Washington game. He's dog shit. All right? Like, all the numbers back it up. When you watch the games, you can clearly see he sucks. He just sucks. So whether Justin Jefferson, you find ways to get him matched up on Tyreek, or Jordan Addison, or whoever the fuck, when you see Tyreek Stevenson there, and assuming there's still going to be some type of rotation between him and Terrell Smith, like, whenever Stevenson's in, attack him repeatedly because it will pay off for you in big ways. Meanwhile, for the Bears, continue to focus on getting the ball out of Caleb's hands quickly. Again, this Vikings team likes to blitz a lot, so hot reads, short design, quick timing, that will be the key here to keep Caleb protective, get him his confidence built early on. Defensively, get after Sam Darnold. Blitz more. And in particular, they've paid a shit ton of money to Montez Sweat because they're morons. And it's not that he sucks. No, it's that he's regressed back to his career mean of being a 2nd or 3rd tier edge rusher. He's a solid player. You don't pay him Myles Garrett fucking money. You just don't. I don't want to hear your fucking excuses. Last year was a fluke. Now he got paid, and he's regressed back to the career mean. But this is the type of game where it's a team that's lost 4 in a row. You need somebody on that team to take the fucking game over and impose their will. And the one guy that is positioned to be able to do that is Montez Sweat. So if he's ever going to be that type of guy, this is the moment, this is the time where that needs to fucking happen, period, no excuses. I don't care if they're double teaming him, chipping him, like, he has to find a way. You got to beat your guy, and you got to go make things happen. And when all else fails, just lock up Matt Eberflus at his house and don't let him show up. That's probably the biggest key to victory of all. Just like, don't let him on the sidelines on Sunday, and you might have a fucking shot. As you can tell by my tone, there's not really a whole lot of optimism here, nor should there be. I'm assuming this game is actually going to be pretty ugly because I think both of the matchups with these teams last year were kind of ugly. I expect it to be low scoring. I really do. I'm going to say something like Vikings 17, Bears 10. And even when you say, well, that means the Bears defense played well. No, it's probably more of a reflection of the Vikings defense is going to play well, and the Vikings offense doesn't have as much pressure, doesn't have to take as many risks, so it kind of creates this fool's gold type of situation where you think the Bears defense is playing better than they actually are, but they're going to give up a shit ton of yards. Meanwhile, I really worry about the Bears as much as they like to build their attack around the running game. It's really hard to run against this Vikings team. They really need to get Roschon more carries in this one as the feature back and then use Swift in a more complementary role. Because when you get him outside of the tackles, you get Swift in space, some good things can happen. But his vision is dog shit, folks. His anticipation, his decision-making as a runner, really bad. And making him your bell cow back is just always kind of asking for trouble. Use Roschon as more of a jackhammer between the tackles. Make him a little more of your primary back. Now, obviously, they're not going to do that because they're fucking dumb because after all, we're talking about Bears football. So I would expect a boring game on Sunday that they're ultimately going to lose, and then you got to turn around 4 days later and watch them get their shit rocked by Detroit on Thanksgiving. Yeehaw!